Hello there and welcome to another episode of Fantasygrounds with Ungainly Titan. Last week we were introducing you to Fantasygrounds, to the initial screen that you're looking at here, and now I want to talk about character generation. So you have two options. One is normally to go into a campaign that you're already a member of, and that's the most normal way you'll do it. Because more than likely as a player you won't have purchased any of the modules necessary for character generation, although some game systems may have that information available for free and it may be available in forms that you can use in Fantasygrounds. However, this is talking about character generation in the context of Dungeons & Dragons 5.0, 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. And in those particular cases, the free version is quite limited. But if you go into Manage Characters, you do have an option for the 5th edition license. And you can go into that version of... you can go into the Manage Characters and get information on 5th edition. However, you will find that unless you have purchased the modules yourself, when you go to the library, there's going to be very limited selection of stuff on a free to play version of it. In my case, this is somewhat different because I've purchased quite a lot of the modules, and therefore I have these modules available to me, and I can load and unload extra modules as I need be to play around with the character generation system offline. The other thing the Manage Character section offers you is the ability to roll roll statistics, roll your ability scores. Because you have a tab here for the rolling of the ability scores. You also got a tab to set up point by, but I found that it's not by default for 5th edition. You have to actually do a bit of changing stuff yourself. So even with the dice rolling there, I have to go down and set up for drop 1. You can also modify so that you have minimum dice rolls and things like that. You can then populate these by just dice rolling. Now I have a box already set up to roll 4 dice. So I just roll the necessary dice and I populate the statistics now. Might decide that the ones below 10 we won't accept, because we want some kind of viable character, and we just re-roll them. However, your stats are generated. Basically, once they're set up, you can create a character any way you want. Normally, however, you will be creating a character on the hosted game, so that you will be going to the join campaign or join game button, pressing that one, and then you will get the username and host address. So you put in the username, whatever handle you want to be known by when you're connected to that game. So I'm going to use Ungainly Titan, if I can figure out how to spell it correctly. Then I'm going to put in the IP address for the host server, the machine that's hosting the game. In this case, it's the same machine that I'm using locally, so I'm just going to type in localhost. But normally you get either a phrase if you're using the alias function that Fantasygrounds provides, or you can just put in a direct IP address if you're on a LAN or whatever. Either will work. But the localhost is what I'm putting in right now. Once I have the details entered, I just click the start button and the system should connect me to the host machine. And once we're connected, you get the splash screen that's loading into the game. And then once you're loaded into the game, you will see the setup stuff. That doesn't seem to go away, which is a problem, I suppose. It's just a bug in the system at the moment. However, you can just very easily get rid of it, and you then connect it up and you get character selection. Now, there's no characters created in this system before, so we're just going to create a character. So you press the green plus button and you get up an unnamed character. You click on the character and you see the character sheet. You can change the portraits. You can go in, you can pick another portrait. You can even set it up so that you get original portraits and stuff like that into the system. Although that may have to be done by the DM and the hosted games. So we're picking up a character here, and then we just go ahead and create a character. So the basics of creating a character is it's kind of best to do it in order. So the first thing you have to do is generate stats. Now I'm just going to roll a bunch of possible stat rolls. I have these little boxes down at the bottom can be used to host dice numbers or various other little things that you want to do regular and often, and I've just set up one little roll 4d6. This is generated a set of numbers, however they're not dropping ones, so they're not the correct numbers that I would like to be using. So we just work out what the correct numbers are, and I'm just going to write them down here, just using the chat window. Because anything you write in here will appear in the chat window. It's pretty much supposed to be in character. It's a way of communicating. If you didn't have any voice communication, you could actually run a game just typing out your conversations in the chat boxes. So this is a chat dialogue. It keeps track of everything that's said or dice rolls during the games. Anything you just drag and drop dice into this, you can drag and drop effects into it, and it will just appear up on the dialogue. So once we have 6 numbers generated, we can then start placing our stats. So we know what kind of character we want to play, and in this particular case, stats aren't great, they're pretty kind of average, but we're going to play a wizard with the stats. So we're going to put 14 into int, 14 into dex. We'll put the 13 into con, and I think we'll put the 11 into wisdom. And then we pretty much have our character or stats generated. So the next thing after that then is to pick a background. Pick a race, pick a background. I don't think the order matters in this particular case, but you can filter your races obviously by selecting the book you're picking from. But we pick a race. We're going to pick an elf, and then we're getting a choice of what kind of elf. We've got some Forgotten Realm choices there, like Moon Elf and Sun Elf, because we had the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, which is Forgotten Realms, set up in the background. We're going to pick Hermit as the background. And so now we have race and background. Background generates some skills. So the next thing we're going to pick is we're going to be a wizard, and then we pick our skills from the wizard. So we just check with the skills to see what we're already proficient in, so that we don't pick those again. We pick 2 skills, and we just go Arcana, and we go Investigation, and then that's our skills picked. So now we have the skills picked, and we decided we're creating a 3rd level wizard, so we just drag the wizard in each time, and each time a wizard, so as you're leveling up, you pick your school, your wizard subclass. So we're going with evocation, and we pull in the 3rd one, and that's just level 3. So we've also, it's generated the hit points, it's added in the various features, and we notice that we have extra cantrip, we have the elven weapon training, we have a variety of things, some background from the hermit, like the discovery feature, and all of this stuff is in here. Sometimes you have choices to make, so that you may have languages to choose. You may have special powers. For instance, monks would have their key powers. Some certain fighters, like the martial champion, I think has, or not the martial champion, the one with the martial maneuvers, would have their maneuver powers and their superiority dice and various other stuff like that. So sometimes you need to keep things like second wind. So I'm just putting in the languages. So we pick Elvish, we have one of the language of our choice. And we're going to pick something like a Baron. And we fill in these various elements. We can also... so that's the basics of the class setup. There aren't many other things left other than spell slots. Now we can pick weapons and things like that as well. But you just... if you drag and drop the weapons or equipment into the inventory, a lot of the weapon stuff is already taken care of, and a lot of the armor stuff gets taken care of. I will go through the specific differences in a fighter as part of this just later on. The next thing to work out for a wizard, of course, is how many spells do you know? How many spells are in your spell book? So we just look that up by looking into the wizard class descriptors, and we then go to spell books. We filter the spells by type. So we go, first of all we need the cantrips, and then we go to the ability section, and we can just drag and drop spells into the ability section, and that will generally parse the spell, and there usually isn't any problem. A lot of the stuff is understandable, so we say, by Fantasygrounds, and it will automatically parse the effects. You can filter your spell list by the class and obviously by the levels. So we have 4 cantrips. We just need to pick out 4 appropriate cantrips, and we're going to go with Blade Ward, Light. We need obviously some kind of Ray of Frost, a damaging cantrip, because that's kind of the bread and butter of the wizard. We get 4 cantrips because of the high elf. So we take in spells. We get Shield, Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Again, we can pick 6 first level spells. And again, we just drag and drop them in, and they're immediately parsed in cases where they need to be. Like Identify doesn't really need anything, because you just cast it if you have prepared, and you just identify the thing or not. But some of the other spells are used in combat and things like that, so therefore it is more useful if their features are automated. And in cases where powers aren't automated, I will show you again later on how you deal with these things. The same here now with the second level spells. We just go through the list and pick out a number of spells suitable for the character. I've just speeded up the video of the picking of the second level spells, because again it's going to be identical to what we did in the first level spells, and it's going to be the same for any kind of powers that we're picking for various characters. So other than inventory, that wizard is ready to go. Now we have Chung Wong, a monk character that I've just created using the exact same techniques that I created the wizard character, in that we generated stats, we dragged and dropped monk, race and background, and now we need to give him a weapon, just to give him a quarterstaff. It's calculating his armor class correctly. Now, I may not have chosen the best stats for the job, but that's another day's work. We also have his so the same with a fighter and things like that. They have weapons. Their armor class would depend on armor and various other things like that. But now that we have given him a weapon, he's got a weapon attack. However, a monk also has other class features that are not included automatically by just adding monk levels to the power section. One of these is the open hand technique, which is basically a savings throw that the monk can choose to impose on a creature that it has hit with its flurry of blows, because of the particular monastic tradition that this monk follows, and that knocks the character prone. Another element is the key powers themselves have not been added, nor for that matter has the unarmed strike, which is one of the monk's basic attacks. Now I'm going to put the open hand technique under the way of the open hand, because there may be other things that I'll be adding later on, and I want to be able to group them together for easy reference. If you see stuff in the class lists that you think might be useful on the power section, you can always drag and drop them in and see if anything happens or if they parse. I pulled in the martial arts one here to see would it actually generate the unarmed strike, but it doesn't. And it's probably no need for it in the power section, but then again, you might leave it there or not. It depends really on how you want to be able to access stuff. So at the end I decided it was best to put in the unarmed strike manually, so I just added it as a weapon power. You'll notice that when the editing mode is over, that it's not actually connected to any linked power. So I just entered it as an unarmed strike, and while I was looking at it, I realised that the character sheet was not picking up strength or dex as the base stat for the weapons. And one of the things about a monk is that they can use strength or dex for their base weapon stat, depending on which they are best at, as long as they're using monk weapons. There's also nothing in the character sheet that allows me to change the underlying weapon stats for the weapon groups, which is probably just as well. So you have to go in and edit the particular attacks then if you want to change the base stat that's used off the attacks. So I'm going to change these to dex. And change, I think, the damage to dex as well, so that this allows for the unarmed or the martial arts prowess of monks. And I have to make the same change to the unarmed strike. And as well as that, in the unarmed strikes case, I actually have to add a damage line because it's a new weapon attack, so there's no dice or anything like that. So you have to look up what the actual dice is for the monk, which I think at level 3 is a d4. So that is in the table as to what dice they're using for their unarmed strikes. So I just drag up the dice, change the base to dex, and put in the damage type, which is bludgeoning. So that leaves the key powers remaining. So we can drag and drop the key powers in as well, and we find that they don't parse either. They're too complicated for Fantasygrounds to immediately parse it. So we're going to create a subgroup called key. And we'll change the base one to flurry of blows. And all we need to do here is record the fact that it's a power, and we just give it the number of daily uses, which depends on the number of key points that the person has and what level they are at. So that automatically gives 3 little circles, which you can then add other powers at. As you can see, I'm still learning the interface here, so I regularly get this stuff wrong as well. But essentially, just go into the key power section. You put it into edit mode, and you just add 3 powers there. And then you can give them the names that are appropriate for the key powers. So you have Flurry of Blows, Step of the Wind, and Patient Defense. Patient Defense is an actual power. It's something you might want to set up, so that therefore you have to add an effect to the Patient Defense entry. It's dodge. It gives yourself a dodge for the rest of the round, and you need to put in dodge, the fact that it's 1 round, target is self, and then you're ready to go. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. And that's it. The monk is ready to go. He's got 3 key powers. Obviously, if you level up, you'd have to change this, and you can edit it, of course, at any time. Like you'll notice there that I've actually put the 3 key powers on the daily rest, whereas they recharge actually on a short rest, which I will correct right now. So that's it. Key powers are done. Like I said, if you have any questions, please ask in the comments. Consider giving the video a like if you found it useful, and the channel a subscription, and I'll catch you all again soon.